Hey guys, and welcome back to another Cultured Boys discussion. I'm Pepe, and I'm joined by Nathan. And this week, we're doing another manga review.
Yay!
And this week, it is the newer series from the mangakas of Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma. It is Tenmaku Cinema.
Woo!
Yeah, it's again, like, we're going to say this right off the bat, it's a very different kind of series compared to what we've usually seen in Jump. So that's a little one-liner for you in preparation for the episode. How are you, Nathan? How are you?
I am good.
Yeah.
Excited, especially after reading this series. I'm very, very excited to be talking about this
Yes.
because it seems like the kind of series that I like, which are unconventional and about a topic I don't fully understand.
Yes.
It seems like we're getting a fair few of those right now.
Yeah. It's good to see these kind of like more unique series come through. But I guess before we get into that, do you want to give a rundown for this series, Nathan? You want a quick bullet?
Yes. Okay, so Tenmaku Cinema, as Pepe previously stated, is the same team that made Shokugeki no Soma or Food Wars, so written by Yuto Tsukuda and illustrated by Shun Seiki. Published April 10th, 2023, so incredibly new, only 8 chapters as of recording. And it is about an extreme movie lover, Hajime Shinichi, and the ghost of the mysterious genius screenwriter, Takehiko Tenmaku. Their meeting will provide some serious plot twists. It's ready, set, action for this coming-of-age series.
Yeah.
That is literally the description I pulled right from Jump itself.
Yeah, that's right. Nathan just hasn't come up with all these buzzwords by himself in the middle of describing this thing.
Basically, that's like the short version, but
Yeah.
Hajime is a massive movie buff because when he was a kid, he was sick. So he watched lots of movies. And Tenmaku is a ghost who possesses his body later when he's a third year junior high school student. And Tenmaku wants to write a script for a legendary director, Ryu Shirakawa, but he doesn't realize that he's been dead for 30 years. So he died in 93 and it's like 2023.
Yeah.
So time has passed, and it's basically Shinichi trying to figure out how to get Tenmaku to pass on.
Mm-hmm.
But Tenmaku wants him to make this film that he's got this script locked in his brain, and hilarity ensues in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
They basically in his school there's this girl and she's a child actor and she's super famous right now. She's blowing up because she's like the best up and coming actress in the country, Himeki Kudakui, and they convince her to basically be the lead in this film that Tenmaku wrote. I don't think it's the one that was locked in his brain, like the one that he was writing for Ryu Shirakawa, but it's a new one, and the film's called The Shore.
Mm-hmm.
And every person who reads this is just instantly at the end brought to tears. It's like the most powerful, moving film ever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or should be when it's made.
But yeah, that is like pretty much an exact rundown of like where we're at right now in the series.
Pretty much.
It is like, it's a very, like, when you hear that, oh, this is made by the creators of Food Wars, you think, God, what am I going to be expecting here? Or what am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
And then you read this thing, and there's no like etchy bits like at all in this, really. Like, especially like in the first like 4 or so chapters. Like, I think there's some you could be considered etchy, like in the 5th one, but even then,
Yeah.
like consider there's 8 chapters out right now, and that was the only part. Like, bruv, this is a very, very different series compared to Food Wars.
But like, I wouldn't have said in terms of what Food Wars was and what this is, I wouldn't have even said that one part was etchy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that one part made sense in the
yes,
overall
yeah.
theming and the chapter.
Yes, so true.
Whereas Food Wars was literally, oh my god, this meal, my
Yeah.
clothes melted away, and it's like, okay, please don't.
Yeah. It's like within reason as well. That's the one thing. And it's
Yeah.
not even, oh, look, it's a plot device. It's like, it is all within reason, this kind of thing. But
Literally.
that is one part in like the 8 chapters that we've read so far as a time recording. And like, it's just been like the whole experience of reading this manga is actually like, it's really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it so far. It's one of those ones where like, obviously we've got a story going on, and it's kind of like, oh, like a bunch of people working together to create this, like this short film. And then like there's a lot of back and forth in terms of like how we go create this with like I'm not a director, like, because obviously, what's his face? Hajime has been tasked with making this movie. And he's like, I'm not a director, but like, obviously, he's a major film buff and he knows what it takes to create like an amazing movie.
Or so he thinks he knows.
Yeah.
That's also another big thing in this so far is that whilst he thinks he knows, he's also actually experiencing and learning
Mm-hmm.
about filmmaking, and he's quickly understanding, oh, that these things are hard, man.
Mm.
Everything that you think is trivial is hard, man.
But he also like comes to grips with it really quickly though. This is one thing, like even when he's like thinking of a budget and stuff like that, of like what he's gonna do, like he's quick on his feet to kind of come up with like solutions to these things.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like Hajime as a character in himself is not one you think like, oh, this story could do without this guy. It's very much focuses on this guy and how he overcomes certain situations. Like a lot of the times he's like, oh, we can't do this. He bumps into a hurdle and then it's Tenmaku which really pushes him to do it. Sometimes in a more comedic way than others.
Yeah.
Because at some points he's like, oh, I can't ask this girl to be our main star. Like she's an absolutely famous actor. And then Tenmaku takes over his body and is like, hey, you want to be in my movie? And then like, hands her the script in a very creepy way.
Or it's just how he gets him to make the film is like,
Yeah.
hey, you make the film or I'm going to possess you. I'm going to curse you
I'm
to
gonna
death.
curse you. Like there's so many different ways where like he's like, oh yeah, you gotta come over this hurdle, or like, yeah, like some jokey way of doing it.
Yeah, like I'm either going to force you or like physically possess you and force you, or I'm going to threaten you.
Yeah. But like even then, like there are other times as well where like Tenmaku actually just gives him like emotional support as well. He's like, oh, I believe you can do this because blah blah blah. And then like it obviously goes back to the cursing shit. But like it's like there's a good balance of like comedy in this, like a little bit of like I want to kind of say slice of life, but it's not really like as deep as some like series go.
Yeah, it's not like a super deep slice of life.
No.
It's like barely on the surface of a slice of life, really.
Yeah. There's a goal at the end of this. This is the one thing. Like
Yeah.
the thing while reading this whole series so far is that what I compared it most to was Bakuman.
You know what? That's a comparison I read online a lot.
Yeah.
Whilst I was doing some research for this, to get character names before I read the thing, to get all the other information like publish date, who's the writer, illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I saw comparisons to Bakuman.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's a series about creating something.
Yes.
It's in a very similar way. Like, it does actually get sort of in depth about filmmaking
Yes.
in the same way that Bakuman got about manga creation. So, like, it's quite interesting because, you sort of you never really think about it.
I think it's one of those ones like these two things take place in a creative industry and it is based around amateurs to the industry, like trying to take it over. Kind of thing. Like Bakuman was like, oh yeah, like it's a team up. This is the one thing, because obviously in Bakuman, you had like a duo of characters which made like a duo, like a manga duo basically. And here we have a kind of very similar thing with Tenmaku and Hajime.
Yeah.
Like in some ways, not as much as it was in Bakuman.
It's not as much of a willing partnership.
No,
but in the sense of skills, yeah, it is the same because
it is very similar.
there's the scriptwriter, the director, then you've got your others like lead actress.
Yeah, like this is one thing. Like I'm reading this though, and I do draw comparisons to Bakuman, but I'm not like, oh, I feel like I've read this before. It's nothing like that whatsoever. You can draw the comparisons, but this is a standalone series in itself. This doesn't like take the piss in terms of, oh yeah, it takes from this manga or this manga. Like this is actually its own original story.
Yeah,
I think it comes through it's a very enjoyable read so far as well.
It's like it feels like they've learned a lot from running, like having Shokugeki no Soma go for so long.
Yes.
Because like the pacing's pretty good in this. Like, like it sort of moves and it's progressing, but it doesn't feel like anything lags too much.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of like thing at the end of the chapter where you just want to keep reading as well. Like like kind of not like a cliffhanger. It's not. This is again like cliffhanger is not the right word for it, because a cliffhanger would be like, oh my god, like something major's happened at the end of the chapter. I need to get. But like what they leave is like a question at the end of the at the end of the chapter, and you're like, oh, I really want to see what happens next in this. How do they solve this situation or whatever? And it keeps you wanting to read more. I feel like it's a series. I think I would get into a lot more if it was all released in one point. This is one thing with it, is that really, like when it comes out week to week, it's something that I'm interested in reading, but I don't know how long it will keep me gripped in that kind of sense.
Yeah.
So again, nothing against the series itself. Like I really would love to continue reading this, but will I remember to read it from week to week is the thing, in my opinion. Like, I don't know.
I feel you on that, like, because this time round it felt great because it wasn't like a whole lot to read, because when we decided to do this, it was only 7 chapters and then 8 as of recording today. And like 8 chapters was pretty good, you know, to quickly, well, not like quickly, but like to sit and read through. And like you said, at the end, it like sort of gets you hooked enough to want to read the next chapter.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me personally, I might leave this as a one where I just let it build a little bit.
Yeah.
And then read a big chunk and then leave it again.
Yeah, I agree. It's the easiest way I think it is to like take this series in, because this is nothing against the series at all. I think it's just the format of it a little bit is like something I would like love to read in bulk.
Yeah, I think it's more of a us problem than a than the manga problem.
Maybe it is. Yeah, it's definitely not a manga problem. I think like if you were like to pick up a copy of Jump, if you made it your regular thing, like I mean, again, we could easily just go on the app every Sunday and read this chapter.
Yeah.
But I think it's very different. Like we've talked about this in previous episodes. Like when we were younger, we used to like go out of our way to read each series week to week. And I do that very little these days. I only really keep up to date with One Piece and like get up to date with a couple others as well. But like this is like again, I think that is, like you said, it's an us problem. I don't think this is if you love reading manga week to week and you love this kind of series, like this Bakuman kind of series, I think you'd really love this, to be fair.
Yeah, it's very inspirational in a sense, because it's like, oh, this is someone who really loves this one thing, and now they're getting to whether, you know, whatever, not their own volition really, but through circumstance gets to do the thing that they essentially really want to do, but they don't realize they want to do. And I feel like that's a bit inspiring, you know?
I think as well, it's one of those ones, yeah, like obviously, yeah, he's thrown into this. Hajime's been thrown into this situation. Now he has to write this, like, or direct this movie. But even in, like, I think it's the 3rd or 4th chapter where he's talking to Himeki about it and like how it should be shot and stuff like that, and like talking about her character, like you see his passion come through in it, and like obviously they talk for ages about this sort of thing, like how they can make this movie happen, and like they'll like talk about 90s movies and stuff like that, like what their inspirations are, and like you see that he does have passion for this. It's just like how is he gonna work around it, basically.
Yeah,
like, he may have been thrown into this situation a bit more, but he's not exactly not enjoying it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Himeki to be that kind of character though.
Yeah.
She looks so serious, and in some ways she is, but she's serious in also a weirdly overbearing, goofy way in the manga.
Yeah.
She's kind of almost like comic relief in a way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like where Hajime is the straight man, you know, he's like, oh, I'm struggling, he's got all the problems. She comes in and then she's like, so I want to talk about my character, Nodoka. What's her favorite animal? But she probably also doesn't like certain animals, right? Like, is she indifferent to macaques?
Yeah, and that's like a running thing as well. Like, oh yeah, I'm playing this character who's indifferent to macaques. And it's like, what?
And she's like, she's very serious about what she's doing. So she's trying to figure out the character, but to such a depth that you're kind of like, is that something you need to know? Like, because that's probably not going to be on screen like ever, but okay.
Even Tenmaku, who wrote the script, is like Hajime's like, well, what's the answer to this? And he's like, I don't know, I didn't write that. I didn't think of that.
Well, because why would you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't develop a character and go, oh yes, this every detail.
But it's really cool to see that kind of character come through in Himeki, because like, again, she is comic relief, but she also throws herself into the job as well. And like you see that she's a professional when they're actually getting around to actually filming this thing.
Yeah.
Like you see that like her dedication dedication that comes through, and like her acting prowess in it, and like everyone's like amazed by it, like as well. Like everyone's amazed by the scripts, everyone's amazed by her acting, and the only thing that is lacking at the moment is their equipment and their
Yeah.
ability to film this thing. And Hajime's thrown it on himself a lot of the time, like everything's really great apart from my directing skills and stuff like that.
But then at the same time, that's where it comes back to the inspiration. Like when you're talking about the equipment, like he still figures it out.
Exactly, yeah.
And like it's also kind of like, yeah, you can do it. You know, they're like, oh, we'll use smartphones and we'll just sort of borrow and do whatever we got to do. Like lots of great films and things have been made when you're struggling like that. Creativity flows like that because you have to be, right? And I'm like, that was pretty cool. But overall, I quite like that this I don't know if you sort of felt the same, but Hajime and Himeki, like comparing it to Food Wars, where Soma was, you know, the kind of like comic relief, like easygoing character, and Erino was, you know, the serious one.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a role reversal in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because now Hajime, who unfortunately I can't unsee it after my brain picked it out, looks a lot like Soma minus a couple of features.
I mean, yeah, you can understand it with.
I think minus a couple of scars or something, right?
Yeah.
He looks a lot like Soma, or like he's quite similar. And then Himeki has, I mean, it's understandable because it's the same team, so you know, it will look similar. But yeah, I just like that sort of like role reversal now.
Yeah.
Like the new main characters are the complete opposites of the previous ones.
I think like as well they're not exactly like none of these characters in this series are like carbon copies of like characters from Shokugeki no Soma either. Like, they all have their very unique personalities. This doesn't feel like a tropey series at all. That's one thing I actually really enjoy about it. Like even if there are some tropes that we haven't picked up on or have mentioned, I feel like there's a lot of this which I feel is, like you said, like very unique, very like I don't know.
They haven't gone for like standard like manga tropes. They've sort of just gone for normal like, because I mean at the moment the characters are, you know, all junior high school students.
Yeah.
And it's only 8 chapters in. So like the supporting characters, his like crew who are part of the movie research club with Hajime, they're just sort of like school tropes of people.
Yes, it is yeah.
Like Japanese student tropes rather than like a manga character trope.
Yeah, it's like weird how like each of the film club members like kind of come through with their own unique talents as well. Like one of them is really good at audio, one of them is really good at building things, and the other has like a family of like he like lives with his sisters in it who are there.
He's the youngest of the family, and he had 2 sisters, so he's like used to like doing hair and makeup and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's a I like that though. That's a positive, like, I don't want to say trope, but you know what I mean? Like a character trait.
I don't think it's a trope, but it's a plot device in some ways, and the fact that like you're moving this, you're not going from chapter to chapter like discovering a new character, which is like, oh, I specialize in camera work, and it's like, oh, do you want to come and join our film crew? And it's like, well, it doesn't drag on like that. It quickly moves on. Like we've got the skill set with some of these characters. We're just gonna move on.
Yeah,
we're not gonna like focus so much on this side character. This series heavily focuses on Hajime
making the film,
Tenmaku and Himeki as well, and that plot as well. So like there's a lot of this which like feels like they like what some series would like, I don't know, drag it on a little bit. Like,
yeah,
this trims the fat. This is like there's chopping this. We're going to this. We're going to this. We're going to this. We're not like dragging this out basically, which I enjoy.
Yeah,
it's a good, like you said, pacing. This is the one thing. It's a really good paced manga so far.
It literally is, because it just gets into it, and it doesn't take too long to explain what's going on, even when it's getting a bit like technical. You know, like, oh, why are you drawing storyboards? Why? Oh, when you got multiple cameras like on a professional shoot, kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it only focuses on it for like a panel, 2 panels or something, like,
yeah,
enough to get it across for you to be like, oh, okay, cool, and then like move on, like, because it's all about what's going on, like it's about making the film now.
And like, if you don't have any knowledge of this kind of thing either, it's a really great insight to what actually goes on behind the scenes of like, obviously this is a very amateur production with a low budget.
Yeah.
And but you can still see them putting in the work with that kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, we need to get like a gimbal, or we need to get like the storyboard sorted. Like sometimes it's right. Like Hajime isn't the best artist in terms of drawing a storyboard, but he's doing it nonetheless. And that's one thing is if you have a storyboard, it helps regardless. Like that's always a good thing to have.
Like for me, it was a crazy refresher to the sixth form days, you know, where we did media studies and stuff, like when we're making music videos for our final project. Like it brings me back to those days where I'm like, oh yeah, I did sort of know some of this stuff in a different context, you know, because it was music video versus a movie.
So
but
true.
like, you know, when you're like, we use some of that equipment, kind of like the dolly, and
it's like doing that makeshift thing. Like all that makeshift stuff comes through, and it's interesting to see that. And like this is the one thing as well, it's all achievable, because even though Tenmaku's like, yeah, I've written a screenplay and like, or like I've written a script, I want you to direct it, it's not like it's an hour-long like full-length feature. This is a realistic goal as well. Like this is like a short film which is like 12 to 15 minutes long, which is achievable for like students basically.
And they also like really reinforce that. They don't ever just say it like once, like, oh, it's only 12 to 15 minute short film. Like they say it a few times. And like Pepe's right, it is attainable, because I mean, if you think about it, this manga's set in the modern day, so like everything they're doing you can do in real life. Like you can go and buy gimbals, you can shoot stuff on phones, because a lot of smartphone cameras are just pretty fucking good now, which is why a lot of times, like, you know, like you hear from all sorts of people, you know, like filmmakers, like YouTubers and stuff, you know, when they talk about people asking them like, how do you start, and they're like, just get your phone out and do it.
Yeah, it's so mad with that as well, because like this is one thing, like again, as someone that works in like the TV industry, I was fully expecting them to be like, oh, we've got to get budget to hire out a camera or something, oh, we've got a cameraman. But no, it's like, it is literally like, oh, we're on a budget, let's literally film on our phones. And like it in some ways that completely blindsided me.
Yeah, same.
Because I was like, oh god, oh yeah, of course it is, because this is something you can do these days, anyone can do it, like you said. And I was just like, oh, of course, makes sense.
I thought they were going to borrow a camera. Like, I thought one of the guys was going to be like, oh, yeah, my uncle's got a camera.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's how you would probably have done it back in the day. But, like, yeah, I completely agree with you. I forgot as well, like, oh, yeah, there's a somewhat professional grade machine in my pocket all the time.
Yeah, it's so bad. And again, this is all attainable. This is all cut down and explained for you. This is one thing, like they don't just like go past this like easily. They don't be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna film it on our cameras. They actually say like, oh, how are we gonna do this? And it's like, well, I'm actually gonna use my phone for this and use this, blah blah blah. And they go into detail about films that have been used, whether they're actual real films or not, I'm not sure.
I think I think the film they were talking about that was filmed on iPhones actually is real though, because I remember that.
Yeah, because I've heard about this sort of thing as well. Yeah, like
because wasn't it? Oh, who was a big director? Was it? They had a quite big name attached to it.
Yeah.
I think there have been other directors though that have used like,
I feel like there's like
a smartphone to do certain shots and things as well, because they're like the clarity is crazy.
100%, yeah. For some reason, Guy Ritchie's the one that appears in my mind, but don't hold me to that. Like Guy Ritchie's filming stuff on an iPhone.
See, I wanted to say it was like, no, it probably wouldn't have been James. It might have been James Cameron actually. I don't know why I keep thinking of that. Either that or like Michael Bay or something.
You know what? We'll research it, and it's there. It's on the screen now. There we go. It's there. It's on the screen. I'm committed to it.
Okay, well, okay. He's committed to it, so hopefully.
Worst comes worst to cut out. But yeah, regardless, that is a thing. And like, bear in mind, they actually talk about real films in this as well.
Yeah.
Like Bakuman referenced like real manga that was out there, obviously while combining it with like fake mangas that they created in their own world. Like this is actually referencing real films, and I feel like there might be like some obviously made up films within that as well, but like they reference like Promised Neverland at one point as well.
Oh yeah, that was it. That was what I was thinking. That was crazy.
They didn't even like. I didn't even know that Promised Neverland like had a live action
film. Yeah,
kind of makes sense though as well. I'm not gonna like be amazed that this thing exists. But like they talk about this in like when talking about locations and stuff like that. Because another thing that goes into it. Yeah, locations is a thing.
Or they, earlier when you were talking about how Himeki and Hajime are talking about like how to shoot the film,
Hmm.
and they're talking about scenes and stuff. They reference the Shawshank Redemption in it as well, like
They do, yeah, that's true.
in the 90s films. So like Pepe is right. They do, some of them probably are made up, where they've got like Ryu Shirakawa. I don't know if Ryu Shirakawa is real. I don't know.
No clue if that that'd be mad if it is. Because if you think about it, imagine if you were like, oh yeah, I really want to work with Robert De Niro, and you made reference to Robert De Niro in your series, and like it doesn't sound out of the ordinary, but it is also like that's mad if a manga did that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, it is also worth mentioning as well that Tenmaku also loves watching films, and obviously he's been dead for so long.
Yeah.
That like he wants to watch like these newer films, so he's like, I want to watch The Godfather, and I want to watch this film, but like, but I can't like stream it or whatever. So can you rent it for me or something like that?
Yeah, well, because he's incorporeal, so he can't touch the screen.
Yeah, but he absolutely loves like watching these movies, and it's a joke. It is also the thing that Tenmaku doesn't remember how he died either. So there's that kind of like mystery that comes through every other chapter or something like that. You might get a little bit of Tenmaku lore.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that coming though from a mile away.
You need to. I think that's it. You do need to. You can't just have a ghost appear up and not address that he's a ghost.
No, I mean like more that like he's just like, oh, I forgot. Or I don't know for some reason. And kind of when you're just like, okay, there's your trope. It's like, oh, of course you don't remember. Oh, there's the mystery. And it's probably going to be like, oh, it's not going to unlock until you finish the film. And then we go into the contest. And oh my God, I remember because of this person or whatever. And you're like, yeah, okay. All right. I see you for that. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that comes through there. You're like, okay. Somewhat like, I want to say it's like, I don't want to say it's completely predictable at all, because there are some things that catch you off guard here. But yeah, I get what you mean.
Oh, there's one last thing I do want to mention though.
Yeah.
As a running gag,
Mm-hmm.
I love that everyone, because they can't see Tenmaku, everyone seems to think that Hajime is going through his Chinibyo phase.
Because he just keeps speaking to himself and like, oh, I have heard you giving like a really passionate speech, but you're like a junior high student, so
he's talking to himself.
Yeah.
Oh, but he's at that age. It's just a phase.
And he can't explain it away either, so he just has to accept that like people think he's Chinibyo.
Like, it's like the first chapter or something, or the second chapter, where his friend Junosuke like puts his hand on his like shoulder, and he's like, I know you're really passionate, but I guess it's just a phase. You don't have to be like that though. And it's just like, no, I'm not a Chinibyo.
It's great. It's so good. Oh man. Yeah, but like yeah, only 8 chapters in so far. I'd love to see how far this goes. I looked at like where it was in Jump in terms of like the magazine and stuff, and like it's kind of near the back. It's to the lower end.
Oh, that's a shame.
But you never know. Like, this is the one thing. I feel like these kind of series, like, they come and go in terms of like how, like, I don't know, when it comes to like rankings in magazines. So hopefully it does well. Like, but at the same time, because they have quite achievable goals, there is the opportunity, if it really doesn't do that well, they can wrap it up in a sort of way that is well paced right now, and I think they can sort it out a little bit. I want it to last longer. I want to see more of this series.
Yeah, I want to at least see them finish the film.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so. If they don't do that, I'd be so disappointed. Because it says such potential.
Yeah.
But I think we mentioned in a previous episode about series that like can kind of draw to their own conclusion instead of being cancelled. I reckon this could also be a series like that.
Oh, definitely.
I don't expect them to finish The Shore and then be like, oh, what's the next movie? But I can equally see them doing it. It depends on how they want to run it.
Yeah. It's definitely got room to continue should it want to, but at the same time, if it wanted to be just a sort of shorter story, then it equally could do that too. Yeah.
you got a lot of character limitations there as well, because like, is Himeki gonna come back and be like, yeah, I'll act in your next thing, or like, I'm like, you need to think like, where else can they go with some of these characters?
Well, I guess it depends on how they end up writing Tenmaku's story, doesn't it? Like,
Yes, and that's where it all falls back on that. Yeah, you're so right.
because like obviously without Tenmaku, they didn't have the script and they don't have the revisions. So like it depends on how Tenmaku ends up going.
Yes.
Because Himeki could just continue to be the next big star, and she'll attract more big names, and they can do crazier productions or whatever. And Hajime becomes a successful director or something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if Tenmaku doesn't write a script, then he can't direct something, which means Himeki won't come back because she's like, oh, maybe it's a one-off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So it really does like pin it all on whatever's gonna happen with this ghost.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So a lot of stuff for unanswered questions right now, and I really like we've mentioned before, I'd love to see this carry on. I'd love to see a proper ending to this if it does end up being a shorter series. But we'll see in the future. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it doesn't go the way of some other series we've reviewed.
I will say this makes me want to go and read. I think there's another series, a little bit older than this, but still one of the newer series in Jump.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called Beat Motion, and it's about animation. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, so there's like another one of these sort of unconventional series about another thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of want to go off and read that now because it's like, another thing that I sort of know a little bit about, but not a whole lot about.
Oh, Beat in Motion, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Beat in Motion.
Okay, I'm looking up now, yeah.
I think that one's about animation.
Yeah, only 8 chapters out so far, yeah?
Oh, only 8. So they like basically came out at the same time. Weird.
Yeah, it seems like a monthly one, yeah, because or bi-weekly maybe, because
Oh, weird.
yeah, it comes out every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. So
But yeah, like that one's about, from what I read online, that one's about like a guy who's really into animation and or whatever, and basically he's doing an animation. Like he ends up being an animator or something. So it's another one of those.
I love these kind of series which like put you into like a certain like aspect of an industry you don't know much about.
Yeah.
And like again, like your Bakumans and that kind of thing. I'd love to like read that. Yeah, I might actually jump on that at some point. Who knows? Maybe even be an episode about it. Who knows?
It might be, to be fair, considering.
Yeah, let's go through all of these kind of series. But yeah, is there anything else you want to say, Nathan, before we wrap this up?
Go and read this. It's pretty good.
Yes.
The art is great, but we know that because Food Wars had good art.
Mm-hmm.
Story is even more tight than Food Wars was.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
And I really feel like this duo has like leveled up this time around. They really learned a lot, and they're like bringing new strengths. So go and read it.
Absolutely, I could only agree with Nathan there, like 100%. Like it's a good series, definitely check it out. But yeah, nice one. Thank you for listening, guys. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Look in the description. We have all our links to the podcast stuff over there. We're on Twitter. You can follow us there as well. And yeah, again, thank you for listening, guys. And we shall see you next time for a Cultured Boys episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.